Have you ever paused to reflect on the deep, often overlooked wisdom of those who have journeyed through the many seasons of life? In this video, we invite you into the tender, transformative world of an 82-year-old woman whose years have gifted her with a perspective both rare and profound. Through the stories she shares and the truths she gently unearths, you'll be challenged to reconsider how you see yourself and those around you. Her insights, rooted in experience and compassion, offer a fresh way of understanding the human body, not just as a physical form, but as a symbol of deeper complexity and beauty. These aren't just tales meant to entertain, they are windows into the essence of dignity, self-respect, and the importance of seeing others in their full humanity. Stay with us until the end. You may find that what you learn here doesn't just change your perception, but transforms your relationship with the world. Before we dive into the heart of today's story, take a moment to subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell. By doing so, you ensure that you'll never miss the life-enriching content we strive to bring you every week. And if today's video brings value into your life, even a spark, please give it a thumbs up. Your support helps spread our message farther and encourages us to keep creating more content that resonates deeply. We also welcome your feedback. If the video speaks to you, please comment with a 1 below. If it doesn't quite connect, feel free to leave a 0. Your input is a compass that guides us toward better, more meaningful stories. Now, let's begin this journey together. It was on a warm and golden afternoon in a small village nestled like a secret among gently rolling hills and sprawling fields of wildflowers that the woman known as Mara sat beneath the shade of an old oak tree. Her eyes sparkled with a clarity untouched by time, and her voice carried the cadence of wisdom honed through years of compassion and understanding. Villagers, young and old, gathered close, drawn by her presence. Mara was not merely an elder. She was a storyteller, a gentle guardian of truths that often go unspoken. Her tales were not simple narratives, but vessels for values and lessons, steeped in wonder and the quiet power of lived experience. That day, Mara's voice rang out clear and steady. Today, my dear ones, I wish to speak of something often mentioned in hushed tones, yet rarely understood fully. It is about the extraordinary beauty and endless diversity of the human body. Though it is the most visible part of us, it is but a sliver of who we truly are. Her words settled over the crowd like the hush of twilight. She paused, her gaze drifting toward the endless sky above, as though drawing wisdom from its boundless horizon. Too often, she continued, people make the mistake of thinking they can understand a person's worth or story just by looking at them. But let me tell you about a young woman named Aliyah, a soul as radiant and generous as the morning sun. A murmur of recognition passed through the listeners. Aliyah was known in the village. Her laughter had a way of brightening even the stormiest day, and her kindness was as natural as the blooming wildflowers that lined the village paths. Yet Aliyah had also been the subject of whispered conversations. She possessed a body that did not fit the narrow molds of conventional beauty. Her breasts were large, and some, in their ignorance, turned this into fodder for cruel assumptions and speculation. Mara's voice softened, a note of sorrow threading through her words. There were those, she said, who thought they could divine the details of Aliyah's private life simply from the shape of her body. They gossiped and judged, confusing visibility with vulnerability, misunderstanding form for character. One day, Aliyah came to Mara, her heart aching under the weight of these unspoken wounds. She told me of the rumors, of how people spoke of her body as if it told them all they needed to know about her intimacy, her values, her morality. It was as if her soul had been eclipsed by the very body that housed it. Mara's voice trembled gently with feeling as she recalled the moment. She had taken Aaliyah's hands in her own, held them with the strength of someone who had seen too many similar stories, and said, "My dear, people often speak from places of fear and ignorance. They judge what they do not understand. What they see is only the surface, a fleeting impression. But you, your heart, your kindness, your strength, these are the things that matter. Your body is a part of you, but it is not the measure of your worth." As she rose slowly to her feet, her presence commanding yet tender, Mara let the power of her words stretch out to meet every listener. The truth, my beloved friends, is that no single trait or feature, no curve, no scar, no line can ever capture the fullness of a human being. Each of us is a universe, a breathtaking mosaic made up of thoughts, experiences, dreams, and battles fought quietly. We are layered, intricate, and ever-evolving. And so, I urge you, when you meet someone, resist the temptation to conclude who they are based on what you see. Look deeper. Look with curiosity. Look with care. There was a shift in the air, a collective stillness that spoke louder than applause. Mara's voice had become a mirror, reflecting truths some had never dared to name. "Remember Aaliyah's story," she said. "Remember that each person is a living, breathing storybook. Their cover may draw your attention, but it is their pages, their substance, that hold the real treasure." If you've made it this far and feel the weight of these lessons stirring something within you, please comment 1 below. Let us know that you're here, learning, growing, and reflecting with us. That simple number connects us through shared understanding. As the sky began its gentle slide into dusk, turning from golden to lavender, Mara's words continued to ripple through the gathering like a soft breeze. There was a visible transformation in the crowd. Heads nodding slowly, eyes cast thoughtfully to the ground or sky, hearts gently breaking open to new ways of seeing. Mara's tale had not merely defended Aaliyah, it had elevated her. It had restored her identity as something far greater than the shape of her body. It had painted her in the colors of courage, dignity, and resilience. Her voice, warm and melodic, embraced the group like a woven shawl. "Each one of you," she said, "is a marvel. You are entirely unique and irreplaceably valuable. Don't let the world diminish you to a single feature or a first impression. You are more, so much more." As the final rays of sunlight dipped behind the hills and the first stars blinked into view, the atmosphere deepened into one of calm reflection. The villagers remained close to Mara, circling around the flickering campfire whose gentle crackling filled the silences between thoughts. In that golden-hued moment, the village, so often bustling with daily life, felt transformed into a sacred space of introspection and communion. It was Lena, a younger woman with thoughtful eyes and a curious heart, who broke the quiet. Raising her hand hesitantly, she asked, "Mara, how do we begin to see others in this deeper way? Judgments, they come so easily. How do we stop them?" Her voice wavered slightly, both unsure and sincere. Mara's smile held the softness of understanding. She motioned for Lena to come closer, then spoke gently. "That, my dear Lena, is a question that begins the journey. The path to truly seeing others starts with curiosity, not the idle kind, but the kind that grows from compassion. Instead of letting your first impressions harden into conclusions, choose to ask questions. Learn about people. Listen to their stories, not just with your ears, but with your heart. That is where real seeing begins." The firelight danced across Mara's face as she continued, drawing everyone closer in spirit and attention. "Let me tell you another story, one that may help." She spoke of a traveler who once came to the village, wearing clothes unfamiliar and speaking with an accent foreign to their ears. His mannerisms were strange, his ways different. And as is often the case with what is unfamiliar, people began to whisper. Some eyed him with suspicion, fearing that his presence might herald disruption or danger. "But Aaliyah," Mara said, her eyes brightening, remembering her own experience with being misunderstood, chose instead to greet him with kindness. She offered him a meal and a place to rest, and in return, she asked him about his journey. As they sat together, sharing stories over food, Aaliyah learned that the traveler had seen wonders beyond imagination, mountains that touched the heavens, rivers that sang like flutes, and cities bursting with color and song. He had survived hardships, known both joy and loss, and carried in him the quiet weight of 1,000 miles traveled. And in return, he learned about their village, its values, its people, its traditions rooted in love. The whispers ceased, Mara said softly. The suspicion dissolved. In its place grew respect, friendship, and a sense of shared humanity, all because one person chose curiosity over judgment. The villagers listened in stillness, touched not just by the story, but by the realization that each of them held the same power, the power to change how others feel, seen, heard, and valued. Mara's tale wasn't just a story about a traveler in a village. It was a guidepost, showing the way toward deeper connections and more compassionate lives. And as the night drew on and stars continued to unfurl across the velvet sky, the villagers remained by the fire, hearts warmed not only by its heat, but by the truth burning within Mara's words, a truth that would stay with them long after the embers cooled. As the night deepened and silence began to settle over the village like a gentle shawl, Mara remained seated near the fire. The villagers stayed too, their hearts reluctant to leave the comfort of her words, the warmth of her wisdom. There was something sacred in the space between her stories, a sense that they were not merely being told something, but invited to feel something, to awaken. She took a slow breath, and her gaze drifted upward, watching a single ember float toward the stars. "We must remember," she said softly, "that judgment is not always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet thoughts we don't speak, the glances we cast, the assumptions we carry in silence. These, too, shape how we see the world, and how the world sees us." It was then that Thomas, a broad-shouldered man known for his strength and quiet nature, stepped forward. His voice, low and hesitant, broke the hush. "Mara, I've often been judged for what I appear to be. People assume I am unkind because I don't speak much. They think I'm angry when I am only tired, or thoughtful. I've lived most of my life trying to change their perception, but sometimes I forget who I really am." There was a pause, one that felt like it held the breath of the entire night. Mara looked at him with unwavering tenderness and responded, "Ah, Tomas, you speak of something many carry, though they never name it. The weight of being misunderstood can make us turn inward, sometimes even away from our truest selves. But remember, your value doesn't rest in how easily others comprehend you. Your essence exists beyond their comprehension. Speak when you are ready, act when it feels right, but never shrink yourself to fit into someone else's shallow frame." A ripple of emotion moved through the crowd. Many had felt what Thomas described, the burden of being misread, the ache of wanting to be seen as more than an outline or stereotype. And here, under the stars and beside the fire, they were given the words they hadn't known they needed, the permission to simply be. Mara's voice grew stronger, more resolute. "We are all born whole, shaped like seeds holding endless potential. But the world teaches us to fracture. It tells us we are only as good as our beauty, our productivity, our usefulness to others, and so we splinter. We hide our softness, our tears, our hungers, our fears. We pretend." She leaned forward slightly, her eyes sharp now, not unkind, but cutting through illusion. But the truth, my dear ones, is this. Real strength is not in pretending. It is in reclaiming all the parts of yourself, even the ones the world said were too much or not enough, even the ones you were told to silence or deny. A few heads bowed, some eyes brimmed with tears, not from sorrow, but from the gentle shock of recognition, from the quiet realization that they were not alone in their pain. Mara's stories had become mirrors, and in those reflections they found both courage and comfort. In this world, she said, there will always be those who judge, who reduce others to their outer form. But your task, your sacred task, is to see deeper, in others and in yourself. Do not become a mirror of their shallow gaze. Become a window. Let people see through you to something deeper, something true. A young boy, no older than 10, tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Mama," he whispered, "is it okay to cry?" His question carried a power beyond its size. Mara heard him, and her smile returned, soft as moonlight. "Yes, child, oh yes. Crying is how our hearts speak when words are too small. It's not weakness, it's honesty. And honesty, that's the bravest language there is." The boy nodded, reassured, and in that moment something shifted, not just in him but in everyone who heard. Permission had been granted. A wall had been gently lowered. The night wore on, not as a barrier, but as a bridge. Time seemed suspended, held in place by shared understanding. Stories flowed like water, each one a piece of someone's truth, offered like a gift. And through it all, Mara listened, guiding when needed, silent when silence was wiser. Eventually, someone asked her, "How did you come to know all this, Mara? How did you learn to see so clearly?" Her answer came after a long pause. By failing, by hurting others without meaning to, by being hurt, by watching people I love disappear into the fog of shame or judgment or regret, and by choosing again and again to return, to try again, to stay soft even when the world tried to harden me. She smiled then, a slow, radiant smile that seemed to hold the weight of decades and the lightness of freedom. Wisdom, she said, is not something we inherit. It is something we earn, one tender, terrifying choice at a time. There was silence again, but this time it was the kind that holds rather than hides, the kind that signals understanding rather than uncertainty, the kind that feels like healing. The villagers began to rise, not to leave, but to gather. One by one they moved closer, not just to Mara, but to each other. Hands were held, eyes met without flinching. Smiles appeared where before there had been guardedness. Something had shifted, not just in the night, but in the hearts around the fire. Mara watched them, her eyes glistening with something far deeper than pride. "This," she said, "this is what it means to live awake, to live as though every person you meet carries a secret they are afraid to reveal, and to meet them not with suspicion but with grace." She reached down and picked up a small stone from the ground, holding it in her palm. "Even this," she said, "has a story." How much more then do we? As the fire dwindled into embers and the first hints of dawn colored the horizon, Mara spoke one final time. "Before you go, I leave you with this. When you next look at someone, try not to see them as a shape or a function or a label. See them as a living poem, a letter written in skin and soul, a story still being told." She rose slowly to her feet. The villagers stood with her, not out of obligation, but in reverence. Not just to her, but to the truth she had helped them remember. A truth too often forgotten in the rush of life, that to be human is to be complex, sacred, unfinished, and enough. As they began to disperse, each carried something intangible, but undeniably real, a shift in vision, a softening of judgment, a quiet promise to see and be seen more truly. And you, yes, you, Watching this from wherever you are, what are you taking with you? If Mara's story stirred something in you, if you felt seen or changed or comforted, tell us with a 1 in the comments below. Your voice matters here. And if it didn't quite land for you, if you're still searching, that's okay too. Leave a 0 point. You are still welcome, still valued. But before you go, we ask just one thing. Share this story. Share it with someone who needs a reminder of their worth. Someone who's been judged unfairly. Someone who needs to remember they are more than what others see. Let Mara's words ripple outwards. Let them heal. And don't forget to like this video if it meant something to you. Subscribe if you haven't already. This community exists because of you choose reflection over reaction, depth over distraction, humanity over haste. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and above all, stay awake.